Today, we're going to talk about ingredient listing, okay? And ingredient listing is very, very important. So let's begin the show. So we're talking about alcohol in skincare and inky. A lot of people say, well, what is inky? What does inky stand for? Sometimes you kind of know what it is, but you don't understand exactly what INCI stands for. So INCI stands for International Nomenclature of Cosmetic Ingredients. The reason this system was created is that there's usually, in terms of chemistry, more than one way to name a molecule, okay, or to name an ingredient. So there was a committee, an international committee formed, and this committee will review the names. For example, if we talk about ethyl alcohol, the alcohol that is in the drinks, in the wine, in the liquor, in the hard drinks like whiskey, etc., that ethyl alcohol can be named in many different ways in chemistry. Two of those simple ones, one is ethyl alcohol and the other one is ethanol, okay? So this creates a little bit of a confusion for the average consumer. So this committee was formed and they said, no, we are going to, at the back of the label, we are going to call it ethyl alcohol all the time. We're not going to call it ethanol. So there is a consistency in naming of the ingredient at the back of a bottle. So there will be an easier way to understand it. However, there's still some misunderstandings and confusion, so we need to talk about that. So the reason is uniformity, common understanding. The other guideline that they came up with was that when you have to list the ingredients for a formulation at the back of the label, the guideline is that you have to go for ingredients from the highest concentration to the lowest concentration, with one key exception. And that key exception that they have created within itself creates a lot of confusion. So let me explain to you. They say if you have 5 ingredients, you go from the highest to the lowest. However, the exception is if the concentration of some of those ingredients is below 1%, then you can mix and match the way you want it, okay? The way the manufacturer wants. So the problem are twofold. Number one, you mix these ranges, and then when you look at the back of a label, you usually don't know at what point the concentration is below 1%. So that within itself creates a lot of confusion when you try to determine which ingredient in the two products, a particular ingredient between two products, has the highest concentration. There is no scientific way by looking at the back of the label that you can determine that. I guarantee that to you. And if anybody comes to you and says, look, I have my product and my second ingredient is, say, vitamin A, that means I have a lot of vitamin A in there. That may not be the case. That may not be truthful, because the first ingredient may be, for example, an emollient at 99.5%, and the second ingredient is vitamin A that is at only 0.5%. So the fact that it's the second ingredient on the list, that doesn't necessarily guarantee a high concentration. So I don't want to confuse you. I'm going to go little by little and I'm going to explain all these things to you. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you guys have a very good, clear understanding as to how to look at the back of the label and know what you can correctly extract from that ingredient listing that is at the back, of what correct information you can extract correctly, what information you can extract in a correct way. Sorry. All right, so let's go. Here basically I talked about this already. This is an example of our vitamin C and ferulic acid. And then you look at the label at the back of the bottle. you see all the ingredients. So basically it says that the first ingredient is water, then there is propanediol, and then it starts with the vitamin C's and it goes down, okay? And usually somewhere down here, you start seeing the preservatives, because preservatives are usually used at the lowest concentration. So now, here I want you to understand, I've created a hypothetical formulation, okay? This formulation from the two products you take from the back of, two products you take from the shelf, and you turn it around and you look at the label and you see that they have the identical ingredient listing at the back of the label. And then the person behind the counter says, no, these two products are identical because they're inky. The international nomenclature is very much the same. Wrong. It doesn't mean those two formulations are the same, even if the inky names are identical. Now let's explain it to you. I'm going to break it down for you. Hypothetical formulation. So we have water, glycerin, alcohol, tocopherol or vitamin E, and fragrance and linalool, which is again a kind of a fragrance. Okay. So the first product, look, it's the same order. It goes from 50%, 20%, 15%, 5%, 0.5, and 0. So order of highest concentration to the lowest concentration. Now, if I cover this, here I have water 60%, is still the highest concentration. Glycerin 15%, here was 20%, but it's still the second highest, so it will appear second. Alcohol here is 10%, here is 15%. Again, it's the third one, but a completely different concentration. So remember, when you look at the back of the label and you want to compare two products, you cannot 100% determine accurately that because the two ingredients are the third one from the list or the second one from the list has the exact, even the first one has the exact same concentration. All you can know are the following. The highest one is the first ingredient, and at one point in that ingredient listing where it becomes below 1%, which you don't know where, then from there to there, everything is in that order, not the exact concentration, in that order. And the other thing that you can be assured is that all those ingredients are present in that formulation. So if you have an allergy, you're aware that you have an allergic reaction to a product, then you know that, well, okay, there is alcohol in there. I know 100%, doesn't matter of the concentration of the alcohol, I'm allergic to it. And then with alcohol, we're going to get to that now after this page here, after this slide, that even that you have to be very aware of what you mean by alcohol. So that's really understanding what is the order, and if that ingredient that you may be allergic to or you want to use on your skin, it's present in that formulation. The rest of that information, the manufacturer, it's at the discretion of the manufacturer that if they want to tell you what is the exact concentration or not. So for example, we use some ingredients that we want you to know exactly how much azelaic acid we have in that formulation. By looking at the back of the label, you cannot tell, but when the manufacturer tells you it's at 10% or 15% or 8% azelaic acid, then you know that's the concentration of the azelaic acid in that formulation. So we need to respect what's at the back of the bottle, and we need to respect as to what information we can accurately extract from that ingredient listing. Now, I want to get into another topic here, which is alcohol. Now, I want you to remember this example because sometimes when we give an analogy, it will stay in our head because it makes things, it kind of leaves a marker. So if I came to you as an adult and I said, I have two animals here. I have a cheetah and I have an elephant. Okay. Now for a second, assume cheetah and elephants are not animals, but they're molecules. But you know that they're very different. Cheetah and elephant, they're completely different animals. In that case, when I'm calling them molecules, let's say cheetah and elephant are completely different molecules. They behave very different. Their speed is different, how they walk is different, how they run is different, where they live is a little bit different, what they consume is very different. They just behave differently. They're different animals, so they're different molecules. Different molecules are the same. They behave differently. Now, I'm going to come and say, you know what? I'm going to put a hat on the cheetah, and I'm going to put the exact same hat on that elephant. So now we call that hat alcohol. Okay, and I'm gonna explain it a little bit. Just bear with me. So now I'm gonna say, you know what? There's cheetah with the hat. There's the elephant with the hat. They're both the same molecule or same animal. Right away you can say, oh, no way. Just because they have a hat on, that doesn't mean they are the same animal, or as I was trying to say, same molecule. No. Alcohols are the exact same thing. Alcohol is like a hat. Now let me try to explain to you. Alcohol, when in a molecule, we have a carbon attached to a hydrogen and an oxygen through a hydroxyl group. That molecule, in terms of organic chemistry, it becomes an alcohol. It's categorized as an alcohol. Now, I can put this hat on a cheetah, or this alcohol on a cheetah, a molecule that is like cheetah, that is very small and fast, like ethyl molecule, ethyl. Now it will become ethyl alcohol. Or I can put it on a very, very big molecule, like an elephant, which is cetyl alcohol, and then they're both alcohols. One is ethyl alcohol and one is cetyl alcohol. So a lot of times what happens, a consumer will pick up a product and they have read a lot about alcohol, and they have been brainwashed in their head. And I'm going to tell you later on why brainwashed, because that's another important thing. They've been brainwashed in general. If there is any alcohol in that formulation, that's a no-no. Alcohol is an irritant. Alcohol is drying. Alcohol is this. Alcohol is that. Alcohol suppresses your immune system when you put it on your skin. All kinds of stories, which some of them are absolutely correct, but there is a but. And I'm going to get to that but later. So now, let me try to give you an example here. From here, I've made a chart for you. I'm not going to get into the details of this table here, because some of these things nobody cares about, but we talked about ethyl alcohol and cetyl alcohol. I'm going to try to explain to you why, in terms of the chemistry, there's a difference between that cheetah and that elephant. But they just have that hydroxyl group. They both have the same hats. Okay? So look at when it takes one of them at 16 degrees, it can cause explosion. So if you have enough ethyl alcohol in a room that it evaporates and you create a spark, the place is going to explode. Okay? They call it the flash point. So that's at the temperature that then there is a spark, a little spark, and there is enough concentration of that in the air, then it will cause an explosion. Okay? 16 degrees, almost kind of a cold room. And look at the other one. Let me go to the right part. 190 degrees. This is not even flammable. Okay? So you see how much the characteristic of one change. The other one evaporates really quickly at higher concentrations and can be drying. The other one is actually emollient. It acts as a barrier on your skin, and it helps your skin to hold moisture and reduce your transepidermal water loss. So if you have read about alcohol and then you have become psychologically allergic to it, then cetyl alcohol is not that alcohol that you have become allergic to, okay? So pay attention how you read the alcohol at the back of the label. Now, the second thing that I always want you to consider and remember is that when we talk about molecules and their irritation potential or toxicity. I made another example for you here. Toxicity is a function of concentration and your exposure. So if I have in a formulation a very tiny amount of alcohol because a particular ingredient was needed to be solubilized in that matrix, or we wanted that matrix to evaporate a touch faster because of the type of the application, that doesn't mean that even that ethyl alcohol, that ethanol that people are very sensitive to it, is going to cause any problems on your skin unless you have done a specific required test and like if you have a peanut allergy, that even if you have the smallest amount of peanut exposure, you can have a severe allergic reaction. But for majority of the people, when they don't have that severe allergic reaction, it doesn't cause any problem. You don't need to worry about it. So be careful how you evaluate an ingredient listing, where you find it on that label. So now if you buy a product that is like maybe a hairspray or something like that, that as the first or the second ingredient is ethyl alcohol, you can be rest assured that product, number one, is flammable. Number two, if it can dry whatever it's applied to, if it's your hair or if it's your skin, etc., it can have a drying effect. But if you buy, say, a serum, and right at the very bottom part of that formulation, you see ethyl alcohol, most probably that was used in one of the ingredients that was used in that formulation that needed some solubilization and stability. That's why they added that alcohol. So keep all those things in perspective. Another example I can give you, we all know about how stinky skunks can be, right? So if you happen to walk your dog or going for a walk in a park, and if you get sprayed by a skunk, that is going to cause a lot of irritation in your lungs and in your nose, and because it smells so heavy, so strong, so that sulfur smell is so strong. But did you know that some of the most famous perfumes and scents are made from dilution of that skunk scent by a millionfold or by 10,000-fold, etc.? So even how something may smell as pleasant or irritant is a function of the concentration. The same way as the benefit as to your skin. If something at one concentration is good, at a much higher concentration, it may be problematic for the skin. So you need also take that into consideration, because sometimes we use an ingredient like salicylic acid or glycolic acid, and scientifically we know at certain concentrations of 8 to 10% for glycolic acid, it's really beneficial for the skin if it used as predetermined intervals, like 3 to 4 times a week. But then some people go to extreme. They use a 40% glycolic acid and they use it on their face, and then it's going to burn it out and cause a lot of inflammation. So pay attention to concentration, pay attention to the back of the label, and put things into perspective as to what you can determine from that label and what you cannot. Now, how many likes did we get? How many likes did I get? How many?
5,000.
5,000 likes. All right, is that good? I have no idea. They're saying yes, that's good. Thank you. And questions. I've reached really the end of the presentation today. It was a short presentation, but it was something that was really important, because a lot of times I get a call from a customer of ours and say, I really like your product, but I'm so disappointed. I see the name alcohol in there. And I say, did you really realize that it's cetyl alcohol? Or did you realize that it's like ethyl alcohol, but it's at like the 20th ingredient on the list because it's part of another ingredient that we use? So the end concentration in the formulation may be 0.01%. So, and they say, I didn't think about that. So ask questions, okay? Before making a decision, ask questions. Okay, did you listen to my presentation? Remember, are you referring to ethyl alcohol? If it's ethyl alcohol, is it as the second or first or third ingredient? Or you can be very specific. If you see a product that you really want to use and there is alcohol in the fourth ingredient, ethyl alcohol, okay? If there's ethyl alcohol as the fourth ingredient, call the manufacturer. Say, can you please tell me what is the concentration of alcohol in this formulation? If you have dry skin, I usually say anything above 5% alcohol. If you use it a lot, it can be very drying to the skin. So you need to keep the concentration of ethyl alcohol low. Questions. I want questions. Very, very good. So when we create an emulsion or a serum, sometimes we have solubility issues. So we are trying to make take an oil-loving ingredient and put it into a water matrix. And you know, oil and water, like vinegar and olive oil, they don't mix, okay? They don't like each other. One is water loving, one is oil loving, and so they separate, they become two-phase. And we want it to be uniform to make it easier for the consumer so they don't have to shake it, okay? So in that case, we use solubilizing agents, okay? Now, alcohol, ethyl alcohol is one of those good solubilizing agents. And sometimes we want the formulation to kind of evaporate a little bit quicker, so give you a better feel on the skin after. And that's there are the two key reasons that we use alcohol, for solubility and evaporation. What are the most common ingredients with alcohol? Cetyl alcohol, ethyl alcohol, butyl alcohol. There are a few of them. I can make a chart for you. There's like cetyl alcohol is one of the most common ones that's used as a emollient. But you remember? Okay, look at this. Let me go back here. Remember this COH? And then you have a group R, so we call it the functional group. So these groups here are usually hydrocarbons. It means that it's carbon and hydrogen. So it can be 2 carbon chain long, 5 carbon chain long, 10 carbon chain long, and the longer it gets, the less volatile it becomes. So but there are tons of them. I can create a list, and at the end of this presentation, I provide a list of most common ones in the to the social media group, so they can post it for you, and you can access it by going to our website to take a look at the most common alcohols that are used in the skincare formulations and their function. So if you want to have access to that table, you need to go and log in and access that table. So when we see mineral oil at the back of the formulation as first, second, or third ingredient, what does that mean? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? So let me try to explain a few things. We have the mineral oil of the 21st century and then have the mineral oil of the 19th century, okay? There's a difference between those two. The reason is that our technology in terms of purification has really advanced. And a lot of times, some of these ingredients were known as being a problematic ingredient because of the impurities, not the molecule itself, not the compound itself, but rather the impurities, okay? So If you're using a product that has first, second, third of ingredient as first, second, or third ingredient listed as mineral oil, there are a few things you need to take into consideration. The concentration will probably be either is first or third, somewhere between 100% if it's the only ingredient listed, or anywhere between 100 and say 10%. The range is really wide. It depends what that formulation is. Now, then you have to pay attention as to what you're using that formulation for. If it's for cleansing, makeup removing, and something that you eventually rinse off as after a few minutes, there you don't have to worry about it. It's not an issue. However, if it's a cream that has a lot of mineral oil in it, then sometimes that can become problematic, because as a leave-on at high concentration, it can become comedogenic and cause problems with too much blocking of the pores, etc. So it's a function of the use as well. And the 21st century mineral oil doesn't have those impurities, so it's not as bad as as people are kind of the way they're painting it as. It's not as bad. Personally, I don't think so. No, it depends on the concentration, but don't correlate that. That's another great example. Benzyl alcohol. So it's a benzene group that is kind of attached to that hat, the alcohol group. So that is used usually as a preservative. You don't need to worry about it, especially if you're rinsing it off. It's usually used at a very low concentration. I'm not a huge fan of it. Some companies use it. The reason I'm not the fan of it is not that it necessarily is that bad, but there are better preservatives that you can use. So that's basically where I stand on that. So likes, shares, comments. I want to know now. I want to know how many people find this presentation useful. So listen, the reason I ask about the likes, I'll be very honest with you. I don't want to get my head to get big or anything like that. It has nothing to do. I gauge the likes based on if I am giving you the information you like to know. That's the most important thing for me. And this is your way of telling me that how useful and interesting that information is for you. Because if I come here and talk about anything I want and you don't find it useful, well, you're defeating the purpose. The purpose of these cosmetic presentations that we have, the cutaneous chemistry, is to make you more aware, to make you more educated. So when you go to select a skincare for yourself, or when you have a problem with your skin, you can determine that problem better and you can select the best product for your skin issue or what you want to do with your skin. All right. I think I'm going to end this presentation. Many thanks to you for following us. Many thanks to you for participating. I really appreciate it. And I want comments telling me what the next presentation should be, what you want us to focus on, what are your key questions. And remember, if you give me your questions in advance, then I can get in a little bit more detail into the answer and make a mini sub-presentation when I do my presentations for you. So please stay tuned and ask as many questions as you want, because the more questions you ask, the happier we get. Thank you so much, and God bless.